Good morning, and thank you for joining the California Association of Wine Grape Growers 48th Annual Meeting. My name is Natalie Collins, and I am serving as the interim president. Because we are hosting this meeting online with the hopes of reaching more of our members, we will work hard to stay on time with the agenda. I want to thank our annual meeting sponsors. Our featured sponsors for today are Pan American Insurance Services and NAU Country. Pan American is CAWG's preferred partner for insurance products for more than 25 years, and we'll have a chance to hear from them today. I want to also recognize the important partnership we have with G3 Enterprises. Thank you for your generous sponsorship and support. And if anyone missed the webinar that we host with G3 to discuss the trucking industry, I highly recommend that you take a listen. Now it is my pleasure to introduce to you Tom Slater, the chair of the CAWG Board of Directors and a Clarksburg area grower.
Thank you, Natalie. It's my honor to serve as chair of CAWG Board of Directors, and I'm pleased to preside over this year's annual meeting. We will start by calling to order CAWG's 48th annual meeting. I've been informed by staff that this meeting has been properly noticed to the members and a quorum is established. It is now my privilege to recognize CAWG's officers. We have Vice Chair Jeff Bitter, a Madera County grape grower and president of Allied Grape Growers. Also Vice Chair is Greg Hibbets from Capital Grapevine Partners. Our secretary is Jason Smith from Valley Farm Management. And our treasurer is Kendall Hoxie-Onisco from Napa Wine Company and Yacht Mill Vineyards. Thank you to our officers and to our 29 dedicated board members, which are listed on your screen. The meeting minutes from last year's 47th annual meeting are available as part of today's program and have been shared in the chat for your review. I ask for a motion to dispense with the reading of the 47th annual meeting minutes from November 11th, 2021, and accept them as distributed.
I move to approve.
Thank you, Kendall. It's been moved to dispense with the reading of the minutes and accept them as distributed. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Jeff. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? Hearing none, motion is passed. Thank you, guys. Now I'd like to call on Treasurer Kendall Hoxie-Onisco to review CAWG's 2021 year-end financials. Kendall?
Thank you, Tom. I'm honored to serve as CAWG's treasurer, and I'm pleased to present the following report. For our 2021 fiscal year, CAWG's total liabilities and net assets on November 30th, 2021 were $1,297,350, with total current liabilities of $163,547. Long-term liabilities specific to the CAWG office lease of $219,900 and total net assets of $913,903. In 2021, the pandemic prevented CAWG from hosting an in-person unified wine and grape symposium. In preparation for that revenue reduction, your association acted early to cut costs to avoid the need to draw on reserves and was successful in that endeavor. I am happy to report that this year, the Unified Wine and Grape Symposium was once again held in person, and although attendance was not as robust as usual, the show successfully exceeded income expectations by 21%. In 2021, CAWG collected $523,184 in grower and associate membership dues, which is quite an achievement considering the continuing challenges of the pandemic, rising inflation, and numerous economic disruptions. We believe continued strong membership support is a telltale sign of the value our members find in CAWG. Sponsorship is a primary source of non-dues revenue for CAWG, and I would like to thank Pan American Insurance Agency, Greg Merrill, Steve Martin, Christine Fox, and the entire Pan American team for their many years of continued support. CAWG maintains a strong and stable long-term financial reserve to protect the association during rough economic climates. This reserve also serves to finance unexpected projects that may arise. COG's cash position at the end of November 2021, including reserve and operating funds, is $1,786,000. In summary, I am pleased to report that your association is in sound financial condition.
That's great, Kendall. Thank you very much for that report. Our next two speakers are going to be giving updates at the federal and state levels. Here to provide an update on key federal policy and political issues in Washington, D.C. is our federal lobbyist, Louis Perry of Cornerstone Government Affairs. He and the team at Cornerstone have been doing outstanding work on our behalf for many years, and we appreciate it very much. Louis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tom. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it so much. And gosh, I see you in a tie. I feel very underdressed. Apologies. I'm home actually. Tomorrow, I'm taking my kid off to college. It's my first one going off to college, and I'm alternately in a state of depression and elation. I don't want to get rid of him, and at the same time, I'm glad he's moving on in the world. But anyway, thank you so much for having me. Cornerstone continues to plow ahead. We like everybody else on this call miss working with John and Gary, but we've really enjoyed working with John Chandler and Natalie and Michael and Tom in the interim, just kind of keeping things going. We find ourselves obviously at the tail end of an election year in DC. A lot of sort of craziness going on. You see it on your national news, and I won't bore you too much with it. Today, I wanted to sort of hit three broad categories. I want to give you a little bit of an update on how Congress is going to finish out the year. I want to talk about the elections just a little bit, and I want to talk about some accomplishments that we have been able to do on behalf of CAWG in coordination with, again, the staff there back in Sacramento. Let's hit first the just where we are in Washington. So after a lot of fits and starts, Congress is poised to consider a reconciliation bill, who, just to be very frank, the end product is a much more favorable bill for agriculture and for, I think, the country than the initial proposed Build Back Better reconciliation bill that the Democrats originally proposed. It's very interesting in a 50-50 Senate how much everyone has to compromise towards the middle. And in doing so, the Democrats basically eliminated most of the burdensome small business taxes that would have been part of the original reconciliation bill. And so now they're poised to do a bill that essentially is going to decrease the deficit by about $300 billion, is going to have some tax increases in it. But the two major tax increases are on corporate entities that have more than $1 billion in book revenue. So I don't know that affects that many CAWG members. And then right now, a hotly debated provision that will increase the taxes that basically hedge fund managers pay. And then, to balance that, they have provisions that will increase IRS enforcement and significantly change the way Medicare negotiates prescription drug prices, which will generate quite a bit of savings for the federal government. They're in the midst of trying to get to an agreement in the Senate to vote on that bill by this weekend. I don't know, that they're already scheduled to be out of town. So every day that goes by is a day they're not campaigning, and instead they're staying in Washington. So I do expect them to be as expeditious as possible and get that bill voted on. I think that as soon as the Senate does pass it, the House will reconvene, members will come back, and they will vote to pass that bill. I think odds are greater than about 75% that bill will pass. For agriculture, it's pretty significant in that there's about $20 billion in new spending for the conservation programs, a very significant increase in the EQIP program, in the conservation security program, and then what they call the RCPP program, and quite a bit of new money for the Forest Service to continue to fight wildfires. And so all of those are a little bit relevant to us. I won't bore you with any more minutia on that, but that is, if you will, the spoils, the benefits, if you will, of a bill that we probably wouldn't have asked for, but there is significant new spending in it for agriculture, which should make it a little easier when they write the next farm bill. And as I mentioned, we are in an election year. California has some seats that are I would say in the very top end of the competitive seats in the country, the most competitive being the David Valadeo seat. I can't think of a member who's been more helpful to the California wine grape growers than him for his work on the Agriculture Appropriations Subcommittee. He and Mike Thompson and Jimmy Panetta, there's a whole crew of your two senators. We're lucky to have good friends, but David Valadeo is in the top 5, if you will, of people that we go to and rely upon for support for the California wine grape growers. His district is the 4th most competitive in the country. And so I think that will be a nail biter, go down to the wire. Mike Garcia is another seat that is the 5th, I believe, most competitive in the country. And so we're watching that race very closely. And then the remaining races, Young Kim, Ken Calvert, both have races. And then John Duarte, who the CAWG board has now endorsed, is in a district that currently rates him about a 60% chance of winning in the fall. It's hard to say what external factors outside of California will influence the vote. I think the abortion issue is very much a hot issue in redder states than California. I think in California, because you have a constitutionally protected right to abortion, I'm just not sure how much of a motivator that's going to be in turning out new voters, if you will, in California. It will be a factor in other states. There's a ballot initiative in Michigan, much like the one in Kansas, on abortion, and I do expect that to make an impact in the fall elections. But California doesn't have that particular situation, so I think that we're watching those races. I think that every one of those members would be a loss for us if they did lose, and so we're watching them very closely. And then I'll close out my comments by just talking a little bit about the work we're doing in the appropriations process. We have, and then mention the Farm Bill as well to close. We obviously, the top priority for us is funding for smoke exposure research through the Agricultural Research Service. And this year, for the first time in our history of working on this issue, have hit the actual request number that we've always sought, which is $5 million in federal appropriations for that research. The board, the Government Relations Committee last week met with a UC Davis researcher that's doing that research. And I think it's fair to say that research is coming along nicely and going well, like it is expected to be. There was some problems initially in getting California allocated the percentage of funding California deserved, but I think that problem is behind us. And so that's good. We also got provisions in the bill that would prohibit the FDA from regulating wine grapes under the Food Safety Modernization Act. And we were able to get additional funding for spotted lanternfly control and obviously continued funding for things like EGVM monitoring and other Pierce's disease and glassy wing sharpshooter monitoring. So a lot of good success in the appropriations process. And then again, to close, I'll just say that the Farm Bill is coming up. It's the next big thing we'll work on in the coming year. CAWG is a board member of and a major contributor to what's called the Specialty Crop Farm Bill Alliance, where we are working on sort of 3 main priorities. One is obviously making sure that the research programs for specialty crops remain adequately funded and robust. Also making sure that we make strides on mechanization research. I think everyone knows we moved significantly into mechanization with respect to wine grape harvest, but we need to move further into mechanization to sort of offset our significant immigration problems. And so we're making that a major Farm Bill push for CAWG. And then the last thing is making sure that the crop insurance program, which we've all come to trust and utilize and need, making sure that it gets that it is improved and continues to work for California wine grape growers. So those are sort of our 3 areas of focus. I don't want to overextend my time here, so I'll just say that we continue to be grateful for CAWG's faith in us, and we'll continue to work hard and work with the team there in Sacramento to do our job. To make sure we represent CAWG in DC, and if there is an opportunity for questions at some point, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Louis. Any questions anyone has, you can put into the chat, and we can get answers for you. And anytime you have a question on what we're doing back in Washington, we can get that answered as well. That was a great overview, Louis. As always, we really appreciate your input, and and all your work over there at Cornerstone. It's much appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'd also like to thank, Louis mentioned John Chandler heads our Federal Issues Committee and works closely with Louis and Natalie on these federal issues, and John's just doing a great job. John's a grower down in the Selma area, and we appreciate all John's work.
Yes, John's jumped right in. It's worth saying that John's given us a lot of time that probably should have been devoted to his farm to focus on CAWG issues, and we're really grateful for it. He has made sure that there's great communication, and just can't say enough positive about that current working relationship.
Yeah, beautiful, Louis. Thank you very much. Well, now it's my pleasure to introduce the other half of this team, Michael Miller, who you all know, who is the Director of Government Relations on the California slate. There he is. Michael will review some of the key priorities and issues that CAWG is working with in Sacramento. Michael?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the introduction and the time to give everybody a brief update on what's happening here in Sacramento. We are in the last month of a 2-year legislative session. The legislature will adjourn on August 31st. And in the month of September, the governor will have signature. So I'm going to discuss briefly what's on the legislative agenda that we are following and tracking and working on in this last month. And I'm also going to discuss some regulatory issues as well. The big issue before legislature right now is the state budget. They've already passed the budget for June 15th. We did it before the June 30th deadline. It took effect July 1. But in the month of August, we're going to be doing a variety of trailer bills and dealing with some changes in revenues and that kind of thing. One issue, obviously, they're going to be focused on drought response. CAWG is very engaged on that. We're asking for a $50 million budget augmentation to create some grants for growers who want to put in irrigation ponds or who want to line existing ponds that aren't lined. Additionally, there's money being allocated for some fire prevention. Wildfires continue to be a problem in California, as we all know. And the new monkeypox issue is a big issue before the legislature. And the reason I bring that up is because that's going to take revenue away from other things that we care about greatly. So it's become, governor's already declared a state of emergency with that. And I expect there's going to be a lot of focus on that in August here as well. Legislatively in bills, we have 3 bills that we're working on. One is AB 2183. This is card check legislation. This is the bill that basically allows for the labor union to create an election process where they control the election, and it is without safeguards for things like a secret ballot. Past legislation last year, AB 616, was vetoed by Governor Newsom. Governors Brown and Governor Schwarzenegger have also vetoed past legislation. Most recently, Lorena Gonzalez, a former Assemblywoman from San Diego, has taken over at the head of the California Labor Federation and has stated that she's going to make card check one of their top priorities in this last month of August. And they've already started a march of UFW employees from the Central Valley up to Sacramento, quote, demanding a signature on the bill. So as you can imagine, all the labor the agro organizations are opposed to that bill. We're going to work hard to hopefully defeat it in the Senate or get yet one more veto. Another bill that we're working on is AB 2101. This is a drought response bill. Earlier this year, Governor Newsom issued an executive order putting some tight parameters on how you can put in a new water well. Basically, he said that the water well has to be consistent with the GSA, the Groundwater Sustainability Agency's plan for that area, for that water basin, and that it can't result in any subsidence. AB 2101 goes further than that executive order. One, it makes it a permanent change in law versus a response to a specific drought. And 2, it requires an engineer's report and creates a process whereby essentially it's going to make it very, very difficult to put in a new or even a replacement well. We continue to work with the Ag Coalition on this one. We suspect if the bill gets to the governor's desk, he will sign it. So we're pushing for some amendments to the bill to exempt things like if it's a replacement well, that kind of a thing. And also we want the engineer's report taken out of the bill because It's going to be very difficult to get an engineer to certify this kind of thing because they will be liable if there's any errors in that certification. Another bill is SB 1162. This is a bill that requires that expands the existing law requiring large employers to file a wage report to Department of Fair Employment and Housing, showing wages paid to their employees based on gender and ethnicity. The idea of the report is they're trying to identify disparities and what this bill would do would be it would make those reports public, which would open the door to lawsuits. And two, it would require for us specifically, it would require our growers to report wages paid contract. So if you farm labor contractor, the farm labor contractor is going to have to file the report, and then the grower may have to file the report as well, based on the information the grower gives to the FLC, that the FLC gives to the grower. So this is a very problematic bill for a bunch of different reasons, and we have a large coalition working in opposition to that one. And you'll probably hear more from us on that in August ahead here. The final issue that we're working on is a big issue for us, and that is kind of the future of farming and technology and automation. We are working with our ag partners, and I'm trying to pursue an amendment to a regulation to allow the full use of autonomous tractors in vineyards and orchards and agriculture. The technology is there, the safety is there, but the regulation is based on old 1970s technology and needs to be updated. It is incredibly out of date. So we're working with manufacturers, ag groups, and others to get that fixed. That's going to be a priority for us in the next 6 months. So we'll continue working on that. Look forward to any questions you may have, and watch your emails. You may be getting some more information from us in the next weeks ahead here about pending legislation in Sacramento. And thank you very much for your support of CAWG. And we work very hard to advocate for you, and your feedback is always welcome. If you have any questions, just let me know. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Michael. I think everyone, you picked out some hot topics, Michael, certainly not all of them in the Capitol, but every one of those touches the members greatly. So I know they appreciate all your knowledge in those. We also appreciate the help we get from Jack Guaco and the Guaco group. Just a fantastic partner to help with all these bills. So, and
thank you for your leadership.
Yeah, pardon me.
Thank you for your leadership.
Oh, my pleasure. Our State Government Affairs Committee is also led by Director Chris Lynch, and Chris has done an outstanding job working with Michael on a daily basis, and we appreciate all of Chris's work and help on these very important issues. So moving on now, I think you've heard us mention Greg, Christine, and Pan American team many times already today. Pan American has been providing CAWG members with quality service for many years, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate their support for all these years. So I'd like to introduce to you Greg Merrill and Christine Fox to say a few words. Greg?
Good morning. Thanks so much, Tom. Appreciate it very much. You can proceed to the next slide. Just wanted to give everybody on the call here a quick snapshot of our history in terms of where Pan American started back in 1946, always in agriculture and supporting the agriculture industry, to really where we are today in terms of our branding and what you see of us out there in terms of as clients and in the wine space and vineyard space. As Pan American part of Relation. And Relation is our national brand, national company, which is growing quite significantly and has been since roughly around 2019. So maybe seeing more of the Relation name in the future. Here's our team. Myself as president, Steve Martin, executive vice president, Christine Fox, who will be talking here in a minute, and then a whole host of team members. What we did here is really pointed out those who work more specifically in the wine industry, whether it's crop insurance or workers' comp, et cetera. But within the state, we have 220 plus team members here in California in ag regions. Next slide. There they are. There's our all of our pins on the map. Next slide. So since 2004, an initiative for us is obviously giving back to the industry in terms of support for CAWG as an association. And so since 2004, we have given back to CAWG $3.7 million in terms of sponsorships and endorsement in an effort to support those initiatives that are important to you as the grower in the industry. In outside of financial support, this is where we also pride ourselves in supporting CAWG and its members in informational webinars, being members of, and Christine has worked very closely on the smoke exposure task force, providing updates, standards, trainings on COVID and injury and illness prevention programs, and then also involvement with regard to specialty crops research initiative advisory board. That's a mouthful. I'll touch on this in terms of our endorsed programs. We have the workers' comp program with preferred employers. Hopefully many of you have sought that out in terms of providing a solution to you. And within that, there is a group discount for CAWG members, A+ rating. We've been with preferred employers since 1995 with this program, so it's stood the test of time. Within Pan American, we have a strong loss control and safety team to support you as an agricultural employer in terms of compliance, in-field trainings. All of our consultants are bilingual, English and Spanish. And then on top of that, when and if a claim does happen, we have 5 dedicated team members in terms of workers' comp claims support here in California. And then beyond that, in terms of our specialty and how we can support CAWG is with regard to commercial property liability. We generally refer to that as package, commercial package. The vineyard and wine program package, and including high value dwellings. Now that has become a difficult area for a lot of us because of wildfire. So what has been one of the semi-unfortunate solutions, but a solution nonetheless, that is obviously there's a backstop is the California Fair Plan, and then wrapping that with a DIC policy that gets you as a homeowner effectively the personal liability and other coverages that the Fair Plan does not cover. So that's a kind of a point that we want to make sure everybody's aware of. We are dealing in that daily, and so have an area of expertise there. And then employee benefits as well. So I'm going to hand it over to Christine Fox with regard to crop insurance.
It keeps me in my corner with crop only, so I'm just kidding. No, I just wanted to touch briefly on our area of expertise here. Obviously, you can see on the slide we've had a long relationship with CAWG and been endorsed by them. And then we do work with NAU Country as well as a handful of other carriers, but NAU is kind of our prime carrier for wine grape growers. They are definitely wine grape grower friendly. We have about 6.2 million in premium written with that carrier. We offer the federal program, federal crop insurance program. There's another program called the Whole Farm policy as well. And then there's a named peril policy for grape cluster freeze. But I just want to point out that we are well versed in wine grapes. So we're on the task force, as Greg mentioned, and we offer continual communication on USDA programs that are available to benefit growers. So not only do we have that crop insurance side, but we also are strong advocates for our growers and trying to keep them informed on other things that can help benefit them. We bring knowledge to the table, we drink your products, and we want to stay, a leader as position ourselves as a leader in your industry. So, with that, hopefully you consider us for your crop insurance. I know price is the same wherever you get it, but we do have a strong team of service representatives for you. So next slide. This is just some updates on crop insurance for 2022. There were some contract changes for your options on contract usage. You can go now up to 2.5 times the price. Before it was only 2 times. Keep in mind, this is only adjusting your liability should there be a claim or some sort of smoke exposure adjustment. The policy does work off of your tons produced, so that's what we're actually looking at. So in the end, this is just kind of to help your liability and bump that up. You also now have the option to use a weighted average of your contracted and uncontracted tonnage. Before, we could only use a contract for all of the tonnage that was under contract. And if it wasn't all under contract, you couldn't use your contract price on your policy. So there's some leniency there. And then we want to remind you to just report your losses to your agent or to us. We are your agent. It's important to do that as early as possible. In the end, you only have 60 days after your last pick, and that's by variety, to get a claim in, but the earlier the better. There's no penalty for filing a claim, so just let us know. All naturally occurring perils are covered. Smoke exposure, obviously a big concern for most growers. Just remember with that specific peril, you need to test your grapes before you harvest. So we're getting to that point where everybody's gonna start harvesting. And so if you have a concern on that, just make sure you get your tests in first. And then if you're interested in coverage for 2023, we don't have any updates yet for that crop year. We'll get those this fall. But the deadline to apply is January 31st next year. So you can amend, review, renew, or you can change your carrier at that time or your agent. So just keep that in mind. That's coming up, half a year away, but it comes faster than we want it when it gets busy. So let us know if we can help in that area. And then again, just touching on our partnership, Greg, if you want to add to this, we've been around for a while now, and we're here to help wherever we can in any line of insurance product that you need. And so I'll pass the baton to Greg.
Absolutely. No, appreciate the relationship, and we're very grateful for it. So we look forward to many great years ahead.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Christine. I will also add that those two and Steve Martin have been quite helpful when we have questions on insurance relative to bills. Michael Miller is in touch with them a lot, and it's quite helpful, their knowledge on the industry, and very valuable to CAWG. So thank you guys, all of you. At this time, I'm going to introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Andrew Klein. He is the Assistant Director at Plant Health and Pest Prevention Services through the California Department of Food and Ag. Dr. Klein will be sharing the efforts of CDFA to safeguard spotted lanternfly from the California wine grape industry. We look forward to this presentation, Dr. Klein, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, excellent. I'll go ahead and share screen then so we can start the presentation. And is that visible on your side of things? Can you see the presentation now?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, good morning. Thank you for that introduction. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to speak with you guys about the various activities that CDFA has been pursuing over the last couple of years with regards to spotted lanternfly. My name's Andy Klein. I am the Assistant Director for the Plant Health and Pest Prevention Services Division here at CDFA. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. So a brief overview of what we're going to be discussing today. We'll cover a little bit of spotted lanternfly, the pest itself, its biology, and the impacts it has in particular to grape. Then we're going to transition over to CDFA's regulatory preparedness, all of the varied activities that we're doing to prepare for spotted lanternfly. Then we'll talk about some of the research efforts that we're doing or that we're collaborating with academic institutes on. And then finally, we'll go into some of the outreach activities that we've also been pursuing over the last couple of years as well. So spotted lanternfly, first, the name, it's actually not a fly. It's in the family Fulgoridae, which is actually plant hoppers, and much more closely related to things like glassy wing sharpshooter than it is to houseflies. So, but this is the pest, this is the bug. It's actually a quite attractive insect. It's got various color patterns there, polka dots, nice contrasting colors of reds and grays and some yellows in the adults. It's a rather large insect, 25 millimeters. That's roughly an inch long, which is a fairly substantial size for an insect. It was first detected here in North America in Pennsylvania in 2014, so about 8 years ago. The likely pathway, we can't say for sure, but the likely pathway is that it hitchhiked as an egg mass on imported stone or associated packing material. So, maybe the wood crating or something to that effect around that stone material. The eggs are laid on pretty much any flat vertical surface. So that can be anything either natural or artificial. So things like tree trunks, rocks, or artificial such as cars, trucks, rail cars, storage containers. All of those things can be used as substrates by the females to lay their eggs on. So you can see that there's potential pathway issues with that. It's known to feed on a little over 100 different species of plants. However, it does have a very strong preference, at least in North America, for tree of heaven, which has the scientific name Ailanthus altissima, as well as grapevine. So here you can see the various life stages. Can you guys see my cursor? Cher, can you see that cursor? So we're going from the adults here through the various nymphal stages, and then here's an adult and an egg mass here, and this is the adult with the wings spread. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the life cycle. And what we know about the life cycle is what we know from what's been transpiring in the eastern United States. So we don't know what would potentially transpire here in California, but what we do have is information from back east. So looking at the top middle here, the egg laying typically occurs from September to November. The female will lay the eggs on, again, any vertical surface, whether that's a tree. Typically, they will climb up a certain distance and then they'll lay their eggs a bit high up off of the ground on a tree, on a car, truck, what have you. They lay the eggs as a cluster, and then they have a secretion that goes over that hardens into almost like a concretion, which protects the eggs and allows them to overwinter in that life stage. So they do that overwintering from October until late spring, early summer, the May, June type. And then we'll see that they'll come out into this first juvenile form, the first instar nymph here. And then as the summer progresses from late May, early June, all the way through July and even into August, you'll still have those juvenile forms. And then after the fourth juvenile form, there are 4 instars, 4 different immature stages. Then about this time of year, around August and maybe even into a little bit of September, you'll have the adults. And the adults are the only life stage that have wings. So all of those juvenile forms, they get around by walking and jumping, but the adults actually have full wings and they're capable of powered flight. So this is when reproduction will occur, and then the life cycle continues again with the female laying the eggs. There's only 1 generation per year, so it is a little bit different from some of the other pests that we have that can have 2, 3, or sometimes even multiple generations per year, like exotic fruit flies. The plant on the left, this is what tree of heaven looks like, and it is one of the preferred hosts. So where is spotted lanternfly currently in the United States? Well, there are 12 states with known infestations listed here on the right: Connecticut, Delaware, Indiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and West Virginia. And they're depicted on the left as well. And you can see, I hope that my pointer here is working. If you can see, this is Berks County, Pennsylvania, which was the original site of the infestation back in 2014. And you can see that over the last 8 years, it's spread to the north to New York and Massachusetts to the northeast, and then southward through through Virginia and West Virginia and into North Carolina, and then westward across Ohio, and 1 infestation known in Indiana. So over the last 8 years, there's been several hundred miles of spread from the original site in Berks County, Pennsylvania. There are several states with interior quarantines that are listed here, but as of today, there is no federal domestic quarantine that has been established by the USDA. And this is an up-to-date 2022 map, but it's up to date even to the last week. We keep track of this at CDFA so that we understand exactly where reporting has occurred back east. So we have the most up-to-date information on the distribution of this insect. This is a map just characterizing the potential distribution of spotted lanternfly, so where it may actually become established. And this was produced back in 2020 in the Journal of Economic Entomology by Wakey and his colleagues. And it's a suitability map, so to speak. You'll see on the bottom left the legend there. The lighter colors are less suitable, but the dark red there, that means where it would be the most likely or the most suitable to establish. You can see that in the mid-Atlantic states where it is now, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, those are all red, but you can see it going across the United States. There's a high likelihood for potential distribution across the upper Midwest. And then if you look out west, you can see the Central Valley and the coastal areas of California, as well as parts of Washington and Oregon are also high likelihoods for this to become established. Now, this model is based on mostly temperature data. So it is a model with parameters, but this is something that has that demonstrates the potential likelihood of the establishment of this insect. Impacts to grapes. So these insects are gregarious. They do occur in large numbers. They tend to congregate with each other. And these insects, just like what glassy wing sharpshooter and some of those plant hoppers have, they have piercing, sucking mouth parts. So it's mouth parts that are much like a straw. And what they'll do is they'll insert the mouth parts into the plant, and they tap into the phloem, which is the sugar element of the plant's vasculature. And so, as you can imagine, if there's hundreds of these insects and they're rather large insects feeding on one vine, that's a lot of pest pressure on one particular plant, and it's taking the sugars and a lot of the nutrients away from the plant. And ultimately that can lead to the killing of the vine. Secondarily, these insects, because they feed on a lot of the plant fluids, they also secrete a lot or excrete a lot of fluids, and that's called honeydew. That honeydew, as it settles on the leaves around the plant, it makes them suitable for sooty mold establishment. And once those sooty molds get onto the leaves, it pretty much obscures the leaf from obtaining sunlight, so it will disrupt photosynthesis and other plant physiological processes, ultimately leading to reduced freeze tolerance, failed fruit set, and potentially death of the vine as well. This is a quote from the Pennsylvania Secretary of Agriculture a couple of years ago. We have vineyards in Pennsylvania that after 2 years are dead, they're done, it kills the plant, and you're out of that business. So there is definitely a pest pressure that's of high impact to grape. So what are some other things? Well, as we talked about that life cycle a few slides ago, the peak feeding of these adults occurs near or at harvest time, which can be extremely problematic, especially for the ripening of the fruit, as well as the sugar content of the fruit. Remember, these insects are also feeding on the phloem, which is the sugar transporting element of the plant's vasculature. Spraying disrupts harvest timing. So, if you're in a vineyard and you're choosing to do a treatment option, it can disrupt the harvest timing, and it's likely that repeat treatments will be necessary. So if you look at the image on the right, all of the little specks of gray that you see under the vines, those are individual dead insects. And you can see that that's hundreds of them that have been killed during this potential treatment. But as these insects continue to develop throughout the year, you can have colonization of the vineyards, which was why you would potentially need repeat treatments. So what are we doing? What is CDFA doing? First and foremost, our state primary entomologist, Dr. Kyle Berkey, used a very quantitative, robust process to evaluate this insect. It's called a pest rating proposal process that's set up in regulation. And it was determined that spotted lanternfly is an A-rated pest, which is our highest pest priority rating. We've provided training for numerous county regulatory staff, so your county agricultural commissioner staff. This is both with our division, Plant Health and Pest Prevention Services, as well as the Pierce's Disease Control Program group. We do this training annually through our Pest Prevention University, which offers information and details on a lot of different insects, but every year for the past 3 years, we've been having SLF as a focus so that we can keep awareness high. And so far, over 1,000 regulatory officials have been trained through this effort. So that's 1,000 people that are now more prepared and aware of spotted lanternfly, how to identify it, how to report it, and what to do when they find it. We've produced numerous advisories to state and county staff, whether that's through pest detection advisories, pest exclusion advisories, all types of notifications, again, to keep awareness high so that folks are continually on the lookout for this insect. We do millions of border station inspections as well as air cargo inspections, and I'll be talking about that a little bit later. We also have participated in the Spotted Lanternfly Summit last year, but every year for the past 3 years, we've also been part of national meetings. In fact, our director, Mark McLaughlin, is right now at National Plant Board talking about spotted lanternflies with other spotted lanternfly activities with other states as well and other plant regulatory officials. What else are we doing? For the past 3 years, we've been doing a detection survey. So we've been developing, refining every year and deploying an annual risk-based detection survey. So we use multiple different parameters to help set where we believe we should prioritize our resources at the highest risk areas so that we can have early detection if spotted lanternfly were to come in. So you can see in the legend on the left, there's various things that are mapped out here, but the balloons are the sites that we're currently surveying this year. So our initial survey was in 2020. We refined it in 21, added some additional sites, added some additional parameters. This year's survey is underway, and this year we're including several fairgrounds and campgrounds. Again, every year we're expanding it. Every year we're reconsidering sites that we looked at previously, as well as additional parameters that we could use as well. This year we're receiving funding through the USDA to perform the detection survey, and to date, we have looked at well over 1,000 sites statewide, and all have been negative. On top of this, we're also working with the railroads, both UP and BNSF, to develop Sentinel SLF pilot detection programs so that we can begin to have survey efforts on those rail yards as well. In 2021, we enacted our California spotted lanternfly state exterior quarantine, and we've been enforcing it since then. This exterior quarantine prohibits entry into California of any spotted lanternfly, its host plants. Remember, there's well over 100, a variety of regulated articles, including conveyances, your cars, trucks, outdoor furniture items, moving containers, anything that originated in those infested areas. Again, and that's part of the reason we keep an up-to-date daily map of what's occurring back east, so that our inspection officials at our border stations are able to recognize, hey, we need to take a look and we need to inspect that particular conveyance. We have 16 border stations that are strategically located on all major highways and interstates that lead into California. And each year we look at approximately 20 million passenger vehicles and well over 6 million commercial vehicles. So we're doing our best to make sure that the land pathways are well accounted for. What else are we doing? We have a Japanese beetle inspection activities that we do for air cargo vessels that arrive into California. So currently there is a federal domestic quarantine that regulates flights from Japanese beetle infested areas in the east to uninfested states in the west, such as California. So we're routinely and comprehensively inspecting those planes for Japanese beetle. In 2019, we decided to piggyback an effort to look at this pathway for spotted lanternfly so we can understand what is potentially occurring there. In 2019, we found 10 dead adult SLF. In 2020, 44, the vast majority of which were dead and a couple that were moribund or dying. And then in 2021, 19. And we're continuing that again this year. It coincides and then continues on a little bit after the Japanese beetle inspections are done. And they really look at the complete interior portion of the plane when they do these inspections. What else are we doing? Last year in September, we began to initiate an ad hoc science advisory panel. And the major goal of this was to help guide our development for a spotted lanternfly action plan that would be specific to California. Because a lot of the factors that are occurring back east are not some of the things that would occur here. So we wanted to make sure that what we're doing here is very California centric and very focused on our activities and our various parameters within the state. So this has fulfilled our responsibility under statute, under Food and Ag Code, to consult with outside experts when developing options for various pest programs. So we decided to do this in the fall of last year. We invited 11 panelists, which were specialists representing Penn State. Again, Pennsylvania was that site of original infestation. So we wanted to make sure that we had folks with a lot of expertise and knowledge of spotted lanternfly on this panel. There were USDA scientists, folks from the University of California, as well as UC Cooperative Extension. It was a very structured panel. We had 50 targeted questions that we asked the panelists. It was a pretty simple format. We did an introduction and the reading of the questions, which was open to the public on the first day. They convened closed panel to really hammer out and discuss all of the answers to those questions. And then we did a reading of the recommendations on the second day. What did we glean from that? The recommendations on the right, well, definitely in the East, the most agriculturally impacted commodity is vineyards, is grape, but it's also a significant nuisance pest as well to the public. At this point in time, visual survey is the most effective means for detecting it, and that's because right now there is no lure for spotted lanternfly. Some traps can be useful, but really that has to do with the size of the infestation and the population level. Eradication should be done, if it is detected, eradication should be done on a broad scale, including as many hosts as possible on all properties within a quarter mile of the detection. And then delimitation, which is our more focused survey, should be done within 2 miles. So again, really taking into account all of the area where when something is found. There were a couple treatment options that were recommended. And then one of the challenges was that could be a weakness is access to various areas. So we need to make sure to take that into account. So all of that information, as well as information that we already possessed, went into building, and we're in the advanced stages of development for the California Action Plan for spotted lanternfly. Again, it's a California-based approach, very descriptive plan for regulatory responses, including recommendations for detection, delimitation, potential treatment activities, as well as quarantine responses if needed. It's a dynamic document, so as the science changes, as new technologies, new techniques, and new data become available, we can insert those into the document, adjust, and keep going. There's a public notification system and outreach portion as well, and an internal communication plan for how we would coordinate with various entities and agencies for response activities. So transitioning to research efforts, some of these are things that we're doing, and many of them are things that we're partnering with other institutes on. One is UC Riverside, looking at the biological control of spotted lanternfly using parasitic wasps. So here's an image of the parasitoid, the little wasp there. It's a really tiny, 0.5 millimeter is a very, very tiny insect, and it's an egg parasitoid. So it lays its eggs inside the eggs of spotted lanternfly. The larvae develop inside there, and then when they exit, you'll see these exit holes in the egg mass. So that's some work that we're partnering with. We've been supportive of the USDA and other academic institutions developing non-chemical biological control tools for tree of heaven, and that can include viruses and fungi, things that would help to control and suppress tree of heaven. Looking at, we've partnered and are supporting UC Riverside to conduct SLF host specificity testing, and that's for both agricultural and native plants so that we can understand the breadth of host usage in California. And this is also for nymphs and adults, because the nymphs and adults can feed on different plants. We've been working with Temple University to develop mathematical models to forecast pathways and potential areas of SLF establishment within California. And this helps us with those detection survey efforts, better understanding where to put our resources and where to prioritize specific surveys. We've been working with UC Davis to develop an economic impact modeling for SLF for multiple agricultural commodities within California, including grape. And then we've been very supportive of California Department of Pesticide Regulations work on mating disruption for spotted lanternfly as well. And then finally, the Pierce's Disease Control Program Board designated SLF as a pest of wine grapes, meaning that research funds can be utilized for SLF research from that particular venue as well. Some of our outreach efforts, one of the things that we're really excited about is we're just finished development and are working on deploying a training module with the UC Master Gardener Group for spotted lanternfly identification and reporting. So we're hoping that as that module gets rolled out, that will actually be accessible by more than 4,000 master gardeners statewide. So it will really help to broaden the detection network, so to speak, out there, and any reporting that may come from potential SLFs. We've been developing a Master Gardener Sentinel program in Lodi. We've been working with various community-based citizen scientist outreach efforts, speaking and doing outreach and briefings with stakeholders such as yourself, as well as other commodity groups and agencies, coordinating with other states, including a Unified Western States Outreach Detection and Response effort. And our director, Mark McLaughlin, is really spearheading that effort. And then CDFA's Pierce's Disease Control Program developed a very comprehensive outreach, education, and communication toolkit and advertising campaign that was funded by the PD GWIS board and through their contractor, Brown Miller. And we're going to roll through some of that here. And then, so here's some of the outreach that's in development. It's a lot of variation on the same thing. What does it look like? How do you report it? And so here's part of that. And we have things that are in English and Spanish, but it's snag it, snap it, report it. So if you can collect it, take a picture of it. We've got these QR codes. You can use your iPhone, upload that to our CDFA pest hotline, and it will help us to understand, do we need to follow up? What does that look like? That type of thing. So these are all the various types of outreach tools. These have been distributed to our county agricultural commissioners as well as cooperative extension offices statewide. And they have the ability to order more if they need more. So here's the rat card, the brochure. Again, it's showing the various life stages, what that looks like, how big these things are, that kind of thing, and what to do if you think you see one. Here's a pest alert, just kind of rolling through, poster, flyer, postcard. And then when we're at meetings or other venues, we have a very large retractable banner, again, really to draw people's interest and eyes towards this. And that's all I have. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Klein. That's just a lot of great information there. Appreciate it very much. We appreciate all the work the department's doing and trying to get ahead of this problem.
And did I, sorry, Chair, did I stop my screen sharing? Is that?
I think you did.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, I think I thanked him. All this early work on this spotted lanternfly is, we know, very important. And we've learned one thing over the years: the more you can know, the sooner you can know it, the better off we are. So thank you, Dr. Klein and the CDFA for all your efforts. And again, if you have questions here, I see something popped up in the chat. We can address those with Dr. Klein, and we'll get back to you with an answer. Or if we have time at the end, well, we probably won't. So we'll address them, but we promise to get you answers to any of those questions. Now it's my turn on the agenda that I see to provide my chair's report. I'd like to highlight some of the activities and key accomplishments of your association this past year. As you are aware, in May, John Aguirre retired from the association as president after 12 years. We have since appointed Natalie Collins as our interim president. Natalie has been with CAWG for almost 7 years and has an immense understanding of agriculture and family ties in the wine grape industry. We are very excited for her to continue the legacy of strong leadership on behalf of our members. I'd also like to make a special thanks to the CAWG staff for all their hard work and dedication during this transition period. And I want to give a special thank you to Carol Lee Williams, who is retiring at the end of the year after 21 years with CAWG. She's on this call, but you can't see her. Carol Lee is CAWG's business manager and also heads up the CAWG Foundation that we're quite proud of. And she's done such an outstanding job over the years. She's played a role in all facets of this association. She is the encyclopedia of where we've been and what we've done, and we will miss her greatly. Thank you, Carol Lee. While some things have changed, CAWG remains focused and committed to its #1 priority, to advocate on behalf of California's wine grape growers in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. Being an advocacy organization, that is where we spend the bulk of our time, energy, and resources. Earlier, you heard from Michael Miller on CAWG's efforts at the state level. We all know California is a difficult place to operate sometimes as a business. And without CAWG's advocacy on behalf of our growers, these challenges we face would be even greater. Federal issues remain a very important part of our overall advocacy efforts. Louis Perry and his team at Cornerstone Government Affairs have been instrumental on issues related to wildfire smoke and our efforts for appropriations funds to support wildfire smoke impacts on wine grapes. As Louis mentioned, the U.S. House of Representatives recently passed legislation that appropriates critical funding for smoke research. Included in this year's appropriations is an additional $5 million for continued research to provide wine grape growers with better methods to predict, prevent, and mitigate smoke damage to grapes and wine. If passed, the federal funding for this research would total $15 million over 4 years. That's an increase of 11% from the funding provided last year. CAWG also pushed hard to secure disaster relief for wine grape growers who suffered losses due to wildfire smoke, drought, and frost events. I'm pleased that Congress provided much needed funding for the Emergency Relief Program, previously known as WIP Plus, and is offering emergency loans for frost events that occurred earlier this year. If you haven't done so already, please register for 2 webinars that we are hosting tomorrow morning, focused on emergency loans for frost damage and an update on the status of emergency relief program applications. We know that many growers do not have the bandwidth to apply for these programs on top of complying with regulations and trying to farm. So we are also hosting a webinar with Crop Disaster Recovery, an LLC who specializes in assisting growers with the application process for federal and state programs such as the emergency loans and the emergency relief program. As you can tell by the volume of webinars and regional meetings conducted, education is a very high priority for CAWG. Your association has convened numerous meetings for its members on issues related to COVID-19, to smoke research, grape transactions and contracts, state and federal funding available to growers, and crop insurance. And we will continue to provide these educational opportunities. This year, CAWG was excited to host the 2022 Unified Wine and Grape Symposium as an in-person event at the newly remodeled Safe Credit Union Convention Center in downtown Sacramento. This show took maximum efforts to ensure the safety of its attendees, and although the attendance was down a little bit reflective of the pandemic, we had a very successful show and an outstanding educational content and a wide range of exhibitors. So please don't forget to save the date for our 2023 show, taking place January 24th through the 26th in downtown Sacramento. And be sure to utilize your CAWG member discount rate when registering. In conclusion, the past few years have been difficult. It's been difficult for growers and difficult for your association. We at CAWG value your membership, and I want to thank you for allowing me to serve as your chair. It's been a privilege to serve an organization like CAWG, which is constantly working hard for you. So due to the nature of this online meeting, if you do have questions or comments, I encourage you to contact Natalie Collins at the CAWG office. She will handle all those questions and comments. So we'll now conclude our annual meeting. I'd like to thank our key sponsors, once more, Pan American Insurance Services, NAU Country, and G3 Enterprises. Thank you guys very, very much. And now I'll entertain a motion in a second to conclude this annual meeting.
Chairman Slater, I make the motion to conclude COG's 2022 annual meeting.
Thank you. I think I heard a second from Kendall.
Second.
There it is. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded without objection. So the annual meeting is now closed. I wish everyone a safe and successful harvest. Look forward to connecting in person in the months ahead. Thank you.